Do you think the power is too entrenched? I mean, you've got these lifelong politicians, these career politicians in Washington, not only in Washington. I mean, we're sitting here in West Orange, New Jersey. Let's face it. We're in the epicenter of cronyism and, kickbacks and just about any other backroom deal you could imagine. It's so entrenched. Mm-hmm. It's so a part of even human nature. Can it really be changed? Can it really be reformed?
Absolutely. I mean, the power is with the people, and it can be reformed. It's not going to be easy, but in our day and age, our information technology that makes so much information available to so many people, literally at their fingertips, touch screen. Why doesn't every child learn civics? So it's not just teaching history, but civics should be mandatory in all schools. The political process should be mandatory in all schools. What has happened to the education system is Americans have been dumbed down, and deliberately so by the career politicians. So most Americans don't know their rights.
You really feel that?
Absolutely.
Deliberately
Absolutely.
so.
I have no doubt about it. Having worked in the system and the process, as I said, both on the Democratic Party and the Republican, I've seen how the system has dumbed down people. Let's take the No Child Left Behind policy. That's about the dumbest program ever adopted that has dumbed down and left more Americans behind than it promised to not leave behind.
Why? I mean, why has that? I mean, you make a statement like that, you have to tell me how that works.
Well, if you look at how the funds are allocated and how the schools all of a sudden to compete for those federal funds, they can't do what is necessarily best for the local kids to be educated. They have to start educating children in a way that will qualify that school district for federal funds, which doesn't necessarily mean the individual children are getting the best education. They're getting an education that will qualify the school district for federal funding. And that is why there have been so many lawsuits filed by teachers, school boards, challenging it. That's why I lay out in this book so many discussions and comments of teachers who point out why the system has failed. And it's programs like No Child Left Behind that should be abolished. It is the whole Department of Education, as far as I'm concerned, should be abolished. And that education should be brought back to the states, to the local levels. Let local taxpayers decide how their tax dollars are going to be spent educating their children, our children, and not having the money being dictated by some bureaucrats in Washington that decide they're going to adopt a universal program that is applied the same way in a New York City or New Jersey as it is in Appalachia or any place else. Yeah. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense either.
It doesn't.
But when you use a word like deliberate, when you, in a sentence that the educators or the people in Washington are deliberately dumbing down the American people, that's an extremely emphatic statement. And again, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well,
because that implies some sort of, some nefarious, I don't know, scheme of some sort.
Well, let's look at the facts. Let's look at the facts. I mean, why is it that America, this great democracy, is the only democracy that only has two parties? All right, you look at any other democracy, they have several parties, they have proportionate representation. People who vote actually vote for the candidate. You have a system here in an electoral college. What most people don't realize, what they're actually voting for is an elector who may or may not vote the will of the people. So you have an electoral college. Most people don't realize that. That's why civics isn't taught. If people realize that they weren't voting for the president or the senator, but they're actually voting for an elector, a delegate of a slate of electors, whether they're the Republican electors or the Democratic electors, who then get together and decide after the November election in early January or December, depending on the year, who the president will be. Most Americans don't know that. It used to be taught in the schools, but all those classes got cut out. Why?
Why?
Because it is in the interest of career politicians in the two-party system that Americans not really understand or know their own process, because then the system can be corrupted the way it has been corrupted. Why is it that we don't have public financing of campaigns like most other countries do? Why is it that we don't have financial limitations on how much can be spent on an election? Why is it that we don't have the media basically allocate public service announcements or the equivalent to campaigns? Why is it that everything has to be paid for by money that can only be contributed by the wealthy? I mean, you look at what it takes to get elected today. There's only one way that that can be done. You've got to get money from the corporate interests, wealthy individuals who are giving you the money for a reason. You owe them. You are indebted to them. And then if you want to run for re-election, you've got to go back to them. And that is not what America is meant to be. That is not the system or the process that was set up by the Founding Fathers. And that is why it is up to we the maids to sweep back in the original intention of the Founding Fathers, what they wrote in the Bill of Rights, what they wrote in the Constitution, and sweep out these corrupt career politicians, as you correctly point out. They're corrupt everywhere. It's not just in New Jersey. Trust me, it's in California, it's in New York. Every state I go and speak, I hear the same story. And all you have to do is look at the corruption cases that come up, whether it's school board officials in California or New Orleans or New Jersey or New York. The corruption is endemic within the party because of the party machineries. And people who try and break away from the party get slapped right down. And the public doesn't know about it because civics isn't taught, history isn't taught. And if people knew what their rights were, which starts with knowledge and education, they would sweep them in very, very quickly.
Peter DeGrassel, sir.
It's a pleasure, Jay.
Would you come back next week?
I'd love to.
And talk a little bit.
Anytime, Jay.
Yeah,
absolutely.
let's talk about the book. Let's mention the title of the book again.
It's Custom-Made Knowledge.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to put it up here.
M-A-I-D.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book and a wonderful author. Custom-Made Knowledge. We've been talking to the author of this book, Peter DeGrassel. He's going to come back next week. I'm sure he's going to have lots to say about civics, and also we really want to talk about China as well, and why you are so enthusiastic about for the U.S. to embrace China in the 21st century.
Be happy to and look forward to it,
It's been
Jay.
a pleasure. You've been watching Community Impact. Thank you for joining us.